Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome to Pandora's Box, ladies and gentlemen. We are with you once again. I, Sergeant Sperm Whale. I've decided that's my new moniker.
Sergeant Sperm Whale.
Sergeant Sperm Whale. With my trusty accomplices. To my right, we have... Introduce yourself, my friend.
Cherry Bottom Girl.
We've got Cherry Bottom Girl. And to the left, we have my other accomplice B.
Rock Steel Man.
Rock Steel Man, Cherry Bottom Girl, and Sergeant Sperm Whale. The most deadly sergeant.
You can call me Cherry
Thief.
Bottom if you want.
Cherry Bottom.
Cherry Bottom for sure. And what do you want us to call you for?
Steel.
Steel. Sounds like a bad guy in like an 80s action movie.
Like a Rambo kind of character.
Yeah.
I am Steel.
Funnily enough, I was going to say Rocky, so Sylvester Stallone theme, you know?
Exactly.
Like, you know, a new Rocky comes out and it's just like there's some evil Bulgarian called like Steel.
You want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
Yeah.
You're like an old fisheye.
I'm telling you what, I am loving this camera positioning today.
It
I feel
looks
like
like
I'm
the
in
mic
all
is
of
coming
your
out of the
houses.
camera as well. It's pretty crazy.
Is it a bit intense?
Yeah, it's really intense. But
I feel like I'm like in all of the houses of the people watching right now. I'm staring at you, ladies and gents.
Maybe he is.
Maybe I am. Alex that is watching right now. I'm looking at you.
I'm in you.
I'm in your phone. Let me out. But yes.
Yeah, hope everyone's had a good week out there. Whatever you've been doing, we appreciate each and every one of you. Pandora's Box listeners out there. Have we actually given, did we give a name to the Pandora's Box listeners?
What are the fandom called?
Friends of the Pod.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah,
there's friends of the pod, isn't there? Yeah, because I remember on Dark Dell, we called them Dark Dwellers.
Dell Dwellers.
Was it Dell Dwellers or Dark Dwellers?
Oh, we the Dell Dwellers. And they were the Dark Delians.
Oh.
I'm just making
Dark
up.
Delians.
Yeah, I think we call them Dark Dwellers. Drew's just confusing me. I mean,
Dwellers of the Dark.
I mean, Cherry Bottom. Cherry Bottom's confusing me. But we've got some pretty cool stuff to talk about on the pod this week.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen like little tidbits here and there over the last week, and I've been like, oh, mate, I'm going to save that, or I'm going to look into that. And
I'm going to save
we've
that.
got a plethora of intriguing things to talk about, some of which may be groundbreaking, scientific...
breakthroughs and discoveries.
Yes. Some of which might be absolute ruder word for gonads. But we shall discover and look into this together and explore the mysteries of the universe and beyond.
Let's open the box.
So, first up, let's see, little things, my notes. I say I always, don't always. But I sometimes have notes for Pandora's Box, because I put things down, because otherwise I'll forget them. So one thing I saw this week was that there seems to be a new whale discovery. When I say whale discovery, I don't mean obviously a type of whale that's living now. I mean that archaeologists have discovered an ancient extinct type of whale, which may... now be the biggest animal that ever lived.
Whoa, that is really cool.
Might be bigger than any sauropod dinosaur, like Argentinosaurus. It might be bigger than even the blue whale itself, which is quite we were talking a bit when we were in Kent as well about the giant ichthyosaurs, weren't we? Like, I know that some of those were like, you know, about the same size as a blue whale. It makes you wonder, are we going to discover other animals that are even bigger in the future? Who knows? But let's have a look at this article together. I said I looked into it a little bit, but I wanted to save it so we could explore this, as I said, together as a family. So let's have a look then. Whale of a whale may be biggest animal ever. This is from a website just called Science.
Okay.
Science.org. Sounds credible.
Sounds trustworthy.
Doesn't it, you know? Sounds credible. Or maybe they're just fooling us. That's what they want us to believe. Anyway. The animal described by 39-million-year-old Peruvian fossils piqued Drew's interest.
Ooh.
Sorry, Cherry Bottom's interest. Maybe it was a whale that was on ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca whale.
Ayahuasca whale. Ayahuasca. Yeah, could weigh as much as 340 tons.
Whoa.
That sounds like a lot. I can't even imagine it in my head.
140
Can
tons.
one of you look up how much that is in kilos and also pounds? And also stone. Because, you know, like some people, like I know one guy, and to be honest, I always think it's a little bit like weird, because I just think like, why do you even care so much? But I observed once that he basically said that he only ever wanted to know measurements in kilos, and I was like, why? Because I don't mind using like pounds or stone, whatever. And he was like, because that's the most efficient way to do it. And I just thought, like, A, you sound boring as hell right now. And also, I also think you have to accept that, like, some people will use pounds. Obviously, in America, they all use pounds. Older people in the UK will still use pounds because it was more sort of like a thing of our generation. Then they started using metric rather than the imperial system. So, like, our grandparents would probably prefer to use pounds and inches and stuff over kilos and centimeters
and ounces.
Yeah. And also, I think it's quite good to sort of know both, just for your own benefit more than anything else. Because sometimes there might be an instance where you might say, how long is this thing? And someone might say 12 inches. Well, you need to sort of be able to figure out how much that is in centimeters. I mean, luckily, you could just type it into your phone, which I've asked you guys to do. But I think it's good to roughly know how long it is in centimeters. You know what I mean? You could have a rough estimate in your head, like, okay, so 12 inches is probably about, such and such centimeters. Or if somebody said, how much is 100 kilos in pounds, you'd be able to say, well, it's roughly 220.
Yeah, I couldn't do any of them.
No, I can do like kilograms and stuff.
That's not as long.
I wish I could do.
That's not as heavy.
Yeah,
that's heavy.
Kilos to pounds.
I could pick that up.
The easy way to remember how to roughly figure out kilos to pounds is basically double the number and then add on a bit more.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So I say this is rough. So this isn't exact, but say like 100 kilos would probably be about 215 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Right. And say if you this is the gym bro coming out of me now. So in America, in all the gyms, their dumbbells and their weight plates are all in pounds. So they would have 45-pound plates, whereas in the UK, what do we have?
Kilos.
We have 20 kilo plates. Right, so
tell you what, if there's one place I wish we didn't have kilos, it was in the gym. That made me feel a lot better about myself, I think.
Well, so we had
pounds.
pounds.
I went in, they're like, I'm lifting like 220, and
a higher number, yeah.
That'd be a lot better than being like, I'm lifting 20 kg.
Yeah, and actually some weight plates, just because they're manufacturers that sell both to the UK and the US, makes sense from a marketing standpoint, they'll have on the plate 20 kilos, 44 pounds. So actually, see, this is
good way to learn.
A lot of people think that weightlifting is like a numbskull activity. No, not only will you make yourself a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus and be able to rip trees out of the ground with your bare hands, baby, but you'll also know the difference between pounds and kilos, which might come in handy when you're one day trying to figure out how to build a flat-packed summer house with an American friend of yours who will be completely flabbergasted by your talk of centimeters and meters and all this stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, I can't do this with you, man! I just want you to speak in inches and pounds." Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Consider it a workout for your brain.
So just
for the muscles.
Kilos to pounds, double it, add a little bit more. 20 kilos, it's 44 pounds. Things like that.
So the weight of the whale.
So, yes, getting back to it. This is why we just go off on tangents on Pandora's Box.
You said 320 tons, yeah?
No, 340.
340 tons.
Even more.
So, obviously...
Steel.
A ton is, 1,000 kilograms?
Yeah, I think that's a
So,
metric.
it would be 340,000 kilograms straight away. In stone, it would be 53,540 stone.
That is like incomprehensible. Are you sure that's right?
That's what it says. Yeah.
That many stone. That's crazy, man.
That alarm is the stone alarm.
Yeah. They can't believe it.
Oh my god, we just hit a new record.
God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're going to go with. That's like the oh my god alarm. We got a record. That's the world record alarm. Only ever goes off if we break a world Not we break a personal world record, if we find out about a
one.
Yeah. That is like that to me, that just is almost an incomprehensible weight. Like I say at the moment, weighed myself recently, and I was 16.3 stone. And I think most people would think that was pretty heavy. So you compare that to, what was it, like 53,000?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Makes you feel better.
You wouldn't want to get rolled, want that rolled maybe.
No.
That's like the difference in weight, surely, between like us and like a mouse. Do you know what I mean? I'd be interested to know.
Maybe even more.
Yeah,
man.
I reckon more. I actually reckon more. Yeah, I was thinking that, but then I didn't want to overdo it. I was originally going to say like a woodlouse, but then I was probably not that.
Have you ever stood next to like an elephant before?
No, but I've stood next to a giraffe.
Yeah, the giraffe was the other thing I was thinking.
Australian fauna.
It's hard to it's hard to imagine even like with these big animals and that what it's like actually like to just be in the presence of one and actually be like.
Well, I remember I went to Paignton Zoo, took my daughter to Paignton Zoo last year, and there were giraffes. There were giraffes and rhinos at Paignton. There wasn't.
They're not so rotund giraffes though, are they? They're really tall.
I was going to say that when you combine the two of them, that's almost like you get an elephant, so I can imagine that's the most awe-inspiring. But being in the presence of a rhino, like I think in our head, we sometimes could think a rhino is just like a bit bigger than like a big bull, but with like grey, thicker skin and like a big horn in the middle rather than two at the sides. But to say a rhino is like a big bull is like, it's not true. Like when I was in the presence of a rhino and I was stood next to one, I think it was a black rhino as well. I think white rhinos are even bigger. It was freaking like a tank. It was like I was stood next to a tank with organs. You know, like I was like, oh my God. Like, it might have been bigger than my freaking car. You know, and I've got quite a big car, you know.
That's crazy.
I've got like a VW Touareg, which is like it's like Volkswagen's biggest sort of SUV. But, yeah, I was just, it was like colossal. I was just remember thinking like, this is like almost like as close as a human we're going to get to almost like imagining what it would have been like next to like a dinosaur or something. Just in terms of that, like that, how much bigger it is than you as a human. Like, let's face it, as a human, especially in a country like the UK, we're like one of, if not like the biggest animal in the UK, not including our seas and stuff. Because I'm sure, you know, there are obviously animals in the sea bigger. Yeah. But, you know, like obviously badgers, foxes, birds, cats, you know, like, yeah, we are pretty big, and even in like in the world, do you know what I mean? There's most places you go, humans are still going to be considered a pretty large animal, apart from suddenly places like Africa, and then suddenly you've got like lions, hippos, rhinos, elephants, giraffes,
which is crazy when you think about it. Like the fact that it is just the land of
giants.
Yeah, the land of giants, exactly.
Don't they? Isn't like one of the things they call Africa something like the last land of the Megafauna? Or
that's so
like
cool.
It's like a bit of a better ring to it than that. I think. But I think that's one of the things they call it, like something like that, because obviously the Megafauna they call it. It's like it's like that giant. You know, those giant sort of like creatures. So like they see like the heyday of the Megafauna to be like, you know, when like woolly mammoths, and like we've talked about you know, Elasmotherium, which was the largest ever woolly rhino, and we've talked about Paraceratherium, which is an ancestor of the rhino, which was that one that was like, do you remember that one? It was like the biggest mammal that ever lived, and it was just like this colossal one. It was like bigger than a lot of dinosaurs, like really fascinating, mental animal. But yeah, it's like there's still megafauna alive today. Yeah, I said like rhinos, hippos, elephants, giraffes, and it's like they're almost like the last ones. You just this random land of just giants.
I found it really mad as well. I had this thought the other day when I was walking the dog, and just on these rolling hills of Dartmoor, just lots of grass and everything. And I looked down at the grass, and I just had this really weird thought of like how huge the Earth is. Like how huge the Earth is. Like when you think of if it, you know, with it being round, and you think top to bottom, like how that actual you know, just that length, that distance, and yeah, everything comes up to the surface, and the grass grows like 6 inches. And I was like, I had that really weird thought of like, for how vast
almost like
it
an
is,
existential crisis.
Yeah, just like, whoa, like how small everything comes off the ground, and you get trees in that, and trees are pretty huge and stuff, and you get some pretty huge trees.
Some
on the
big tree,
like the grand scheme of things, when you just look at like rolling hills and that, it's weird. It's like hardly anything from how big the Earth is to like, and I imagine when all of the proper megafauna of that time were there, like were the trees and everything bigger as well? Was it just them?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think the trees were big enough.
I find that a bit mad. Like,
well, there's lots of environmental like reasons why animals might get bigger, aren't there? Things like that, you know, and
I would think that would be the same with bushes as well, but no.
I would love for, I know you've spoken about like genetic engineering before and how but what was the animal they're bringing back?
the
woolly mammoth.
no, Tasmanian tiger. Oh yeah, and the woolly mammoth. I think it's going to be.
I would love for them to bring back like more just mega animals.
Hell
Like,
yeah!
imagine
dude.
that. Imagine almost having like a Jurassic World kind of place where it's just all these huge things they'd brought back to life.
And to be fair, man, I think some people, their natural reaction is like, no, man, stop messing. You're playing God. You're messing with nature and stuff. But actually, to be fair to the scientists that are doing these things, they're doing it in a very intelligent way where they're going to reintroduce these animals.
What effect will that have on the ecosystem?
Well, this is the thing that they basically calculated and weighed it up, and they've realised the ones that they're bringing back are the animals that, since they became extinct in the region where the animal lived when it was alive, the region has suffered since the extinction. It might be, say, a carnivore, say like the Tasmanian tiger. There might be, and I'm not saying this is exactly the case, but this is just a good. This is just a good way to explain why it would be good to, say, bring something back. Say in the Tasmanian tiger's case, it might have preyed upon a type of herbivorous animal, plant-eating animal, that ate a certain type of bush or shrubbery or even just grass or something, and then maybe if there's not a predator to keep the animal in check, they might be taking all of that, and then that might be affecting some type of insect or bird or something, and then that's affecting the next thing, and it's this whole knock on, this big chain effect, this chain reaction on the local ecosystem. So that's why they're bringing it back. One thing I hope, which I think is amazing, so apparently now, unless something radical happens, negatively to the research and the genetics that's going on in these labs, apparently within 10 years it's now a fact that woolly mammoths and the Tasmanian tigers have been brought back. There was one other animal as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was. But one of the things which I thought was crazy, and I can't remember why, so we could look into this maybe in a minute and find it all out together. We will get back to this giant whale at some point because we still haven't actually come back for a look at that. But that's cool because I think this is a really interesting conversation. But apparently they're going to bring back woolly mammoths, and then I think they said put it in the Arctic, in the Arctic Circle. And apparently something about the woolly mammoths lifestyle and the way that they live and what the impact they would have on the environment there. Apparently, it would slow down global warming rapidly.
Whoa!
So just by bringing back woolly mammoths, you could undo a lot of the damage that humans have done.
That's so cool.
And one of the leading theories of why woolly mammoths have died out anyway, it was probably a combination of several different factors, but one of them that's widely thought of is because they were one of the main prey source for humans. Humans, a bit like what humans are like nowadays with hunting. They always want to hunt the biggest, most impressive beasts. And also, not just that as well, humans definitely are very much like that, but also you've got to think, humans, hunter-gatherer societies tend to try and want to hunt more because it can give them the most bang for your buck. So you're not going to hunt, say if you've got a tribe of, say, 20 people, you're not going to kill...
Another record.
Yeah, you're not going to kill 200 frogs a day.
Yeah.
Because A, it would be a pain in the ass, and you're not going to get much. It's not even worth cooking them all up and stuff like that. Whereas if you kill one mammoth, not only
as long as you can preserve that, you got it for months.
Well, let's face it, if it's in an area where woolly mammoths live, it's probably going to be pretty cold.
Yeah.
And obviously they would do things like make almost underground fridges essentially.
Freezers.
Yeah, you could dig out and then put some wood and stuff on top of it. You essentially can make a freezer. I know a lot of people that live in out in the wilderness today in Alaska and stuff still do that.
Yeah.
They obviously don't have electricity out there.
Yeah.
But they will make successful freezers essentially just from the earth, just from digging out big holes in the ground, and then
we used to do it in England even. On the old estate, on the estates, massive estates, and the rich people would have these underground bits and keep everything under.
Yeah, what's
there.
it called again?
And you'd have blocks of ice down there.
It's not like a pantry, but it's something. There's a word for it, isn't there? I can't remember what the word is though, but it would be a word this is our such and such.
Yeah. Out on the grounds.
Our ice hole.
Yeah, this is our ice hole. There was a little name for it. I say all of our grandparents would have eaten.
I want to go with ice hole.
Yeah. It sounds almost hilariously simple, doesn't it?
Yeah. Get that down from the ice hole.
Can you go get me some beans from the ice hole? But yeah, some people even still do it today. But think, so if you hunted, say, a mammoth, not only would all of the members of the tribe instantly have a massive meal, you could then store stuff. You would have so much skin from the hide. You'd have so much wool and big thick stuff. You could make yourself ridiculously warm coats and boots and other garments. And then from the bones, the massive bones, you could construct shelters and all sorts. Because especially back in those days, they would have used every part of the animal. And think about how not only in tune with nature our ancestors of that time period would have been, but imagine how awe-inspiring, because we tend to think of things in a very scientific way nowadays, but back in those days, obviously they didn't really think about things in a scientific way, or even if they were discovering things scientifically, they wouldn't have ever thought about it like that. They would have just been thinking of things in like spiritual ways, religious ways, So to them, a beast like a woolly mammoth must have been like so crazy. Like it is crazy, like to us now, but to them it must have been like almost like this godlike beast. Obviously a lot of different old civilizations did worship different animals as different deities, and or at least maybe avatars or aspects of a deity and things like that. So it must have just been like crazy. Man.
Are they about the same size as an elephant?
Bigger.
But
about the same size.
Right.
Bit bigger.
It would. Do you know what I've been thinking about all these, like, bringing these animals back? Imagine how cool it would be in like 10, 15 years when you get to go on like Netflix and you get to watch a nature documentary
with a
about a woolly mammoth that they've brought back from the dead, and they're all just thriving in the Arctic.
There were
so cool.
There were other species of mammoth, because woolly mammoth is like a specific mammoth. There were other types of mammoth. The Columbian mammoth, I think, is the one I'm thinking of, that were like much bigger than elephants. Are we linked up to this?
Yeah.
I'll get up a picture of a Columbian mammoth, like size comparison with a modern day African elephant.
Even the word mammoth just screams size, doesn't it?
Mammoth.
Such a big word.
It's a great name.
Mammoth.
Well, obviously one of the things that was closely related to a mammoth, of course, was a mastodon. And obviously that's a metal
cool
band,
well.
isn't it? Mastodon.
Yeah.
That's just a meaty name, isn't it? Mastodon.
Bring back the oliphants.
Yeah. Olifants. Yeah. So an olifant was essentially like a Columbian mammoth. Obviously, I expect olifants were supposed to be a little bit bigger. So this is a little depiction. So that's the size of an American mastodon when it would have been alive. This is an African
cool
elephant.
Creatures, aren't they?
Yeah, man. And this is a Columbian mammoth. So you can see the Columbian mammoth is quite a bit bigger than a modern day African elephant. Interesting thing about the mastodons, they were actually slightly smaller than African elephants, but they were thought to be extremely stocky and rotund. And in the Natural History Museum in London, they've got a full mastodon skeleton. And one of the things I thought was like the thickness of the bones. And then when you obviously imagine on top of that, they would have had like thick, sinewy muscle and then a big like hide on top. But the bones are like crazy, man. Like I'd say its thigh bones were like 20 times maybe the size.
What's that one in the middle there? Like with all the pictures of them. Like the picture down one and then left one.
Oh, so this is just different types of elephant, I think. So, so what have we got here? So I think this is the Columbian elephant, but this is obviously the Latin names. So you've got
5 different types. Pretty cool.
So the Africana, Loxodonta africana, that's basically an African elephant. Let me think. I don't know exactly what this one is. This one I think is a Indian elephant. I think you can tell by the smaller ears. Indian elephants tend to have smaller ears. This one was probably the Columbian mammoth. Paleoloxodon
Antiquus.
Yeah. And then this was probably the Columbian.
What about that one over on the left?
The mastodon.
The one next to that on the left.
This one?
Down like next to the one that you've clicked on, just clicked on. No, like the one that you're clicked on at the moment.
Yeah.
But just left of it.
This?
like the picture that you're clicked on at the moment, with all the pictures to choose from. The one that's highlighted that you've clicked. Yeah.
This one?
To the left. The one that you've highlighted in the Google search.
What?
Yeah, that one.
I didn't get it because I didn't highlight it, though, did I?
It was. When I was saying, it was highlighted. It was like clicked on, and you could see it blue.
I don't. Yeah. Anyway, I have no idea what you're on about. But yeah. So this one. This is just different types of animals that were related to.
You got a Cretan dwarf mammoth there.
Yeah. So I'm assuming these animals at the top would have been very, very ancient types of like elephant. So what elephants evolved out of, like these types of things, really ancient. This is like a ridiculously long time ago. And then you're going through the history to sort of more modern day elephants.
You can see why they're seen as like such intelligent animals.
Well, they are.
Like it's like they say, elephants never forget, but they do. Even just the look of them, they look quite wisdomous.
Look at that, like compared to us in a museum. I mean, I know it's obviously not a great scale, but you can see some people in the background there. Look at that. So look at that Colombian mammoth skeleton. That's just like crazy.
Those tusks are insane.
They are massive, aren't they?
Actual tusks.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The thing is, they think that African elephants even would have had bigger tusks than they used to, but they're evolving to have smaller ones just because of the pure fact that the hunters, they prize bigger tusked elephants. So if you think about it, it's as simple as this, right? If you're killing all the elephants with the biggest tusks and then they are no longer mating because they're obviously dead, then they're losing the gene. They're losing the big tusk gene.
Is the tusks for like hunting?
I think it's for like brushing away undergrowth and stuff like that.
Right.
And maybe a little bit like, fighting with other males and things like that. Probably a little bit like predatory defense as well, things like that. I suppose it's several purposes, but I think the main one is more like brushing away undergrowth and things like that. I
imagine the bones must be why they're like, obviously they are massive animals anyway, but the bones must equate to a lot of the weight of an animal. For example, like we were talking about the whale earlier, how like crazily heavy that was. But I'd be curious to know what obviously a shark doesn't have bones. It's got like cartilage instead.
That's right, yeah.
So is that lighter? Would that be like, if there was a shark of the same size as this whale, would it be like quite considerably lighter than the whale?
I don't reckon so. I think I'm pretty sure that sharks, like pound for pound, are like very, very heavy.
Right.
Like very, very heavy. We obviously talked a little bit, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago about sort of comparing like megalodons to like Leviathan melville, which was like that giant predatory ancestor of the sperm whale that lived about the same time. Let me see if scientists have an estimate of the weight of the megalodon compared to the weight of Leviathan melville. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they're the same, if not the megalodon was actually more. But I see what you're saying in theory. Like bones obviously are very dense. You're thinking like, does that mean they're heavier? But
I guess there's a lot of muscle.
I think
it's
more like overall mass. Yeah, and I often think as well, like flesh might even be pound for pound heavier than bone.
Right.
If you think about it. Like if you think about it, so say like our skeletons, let's say like your skeleton won't be say like too dissimilar, say probably from my old man's. Like there would be obviously differences where he's a much older male and stuff like that. His bones are probably a bit thicker. He's probably naturally broader than you, stuff like that. But the main reason between the weight difference between you and my old man isn't because of the bones. I expect if you just weighed your bones alone, obviously it wouldn't be able to happen for a long time yet. But one day, future
we'll get back together one day.
Archaeologists,
do that as an episode.
When they dig out your bones up in 1,000 years. Do you know what I mean? I expect the weight wouldn't be that much dissimilar. Yeah. The difference is all obviously because of the fat tissue and muscle and things like that. Yeah. Megalodon. Estimated weight. Estimate weight. So what do they reckon then? Let's see. They reckon that a megalodon...
melville while we're searching for this.
They reckon that it would have probably weighed over 70 tons by the time. So that's 10 times the amount of an African elephant.
Whoa.
So about 70 tons. So let's have a look. So that obviously it's just an estimate because, as Bullwinkle said, because they don't have bones, it's going more on the size estimates of the teeth and stuff like that. Like, and then...
So does cartilage would like kind of disintegrate over time?
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, so obviously their teeth don't. So they can compare the teeth compared to modern, say, like great white sharks and other sharks, and then from that make an estimate of how big, say, its head would have been compared to the teeth, and then from that make an estimate of how, from measuring other sharks, and then they'll do like an estimate. So they'll do on the lower end. So they'll say like it would have been between 45 and 60 foot long, 45 being the lower estimate, 60 foot being the upper estimate. So Leviathan melville.
It says here Leviathan melville. It says, well, there's two different ones here, but it's giving me around 62 tons.
Yeah, so 62 tons, and it says Megalodon here, it might have been about 70 tons. So around the same, but as I said, if Megalodon actually is...
Yeah, it looks like it's actually heavier.
That could actually be wrong, potentially, because...
You never know.
As I said, these are estimates. These are animals that are long extinct.
Yeah.
But... about the same, maybe Megalodon a little bit heavier, most likely, but we don't know for sure.
That is cool.
Do you think that one day things like the Megalodon would be able to be brought back?
I don't think people ever would bring it back.
No.
I think that people would just see it as nothing but a downside to bring back something like the Megalodon. I mean, they could like swallow ships. Would you really want essentially like...
I'd want to see one. I'd want one to get...
I'd sort of want to see... Yeah, but mate, like, how would you even see it? Do you know what I mean?
It would be like in a Jurassic World kind of situation.
Yeah, you'd have to
wouldn't
build this like massive like kind of
because I was going to say, because you wouldn't want to. I'd be like sketched out on a boat.
it? Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, damn.
I suppose let's face it, unless it's like a massive cruise line or like a massive navy ship, most boats would be smaller than the frickin' shark, and that would make me feel so uneasy.
There would be people going out in little submersibles trying to find it as well. Imagine that. Imagine being in one of those little like submarines, just with a glass opening, and seeing the shadow swimming around.
Yeah,
I would quite like the idea of like an old Jurassic World being built. Imagine that, because in the new one, it's like a theme park. Well, I suppose the original was as well, but having like genetically
that was well funny.
I remember hearing like a while back, I don't know if it's actually true or if they're still intending to do it. I imagine obviously a lot of Russia's budget's going on the war at the moment. But I remember hearing a little while back that, I don't know who it was in Russia or what agency, like company or whatever, but that somebody in Russia wanted to make like a prehistoric park.
Yeah, imagine that, because it would be like quite cool, but also like terrifying. Like I'm pretty sure at the end of the like newest Jurassic one, all the like pterodactyls and stuff should break out and fly out into the rest of the world.
I think that's,
imagine if that happened. Imagine if the animals just got out and then you just had dinosaurs roaming the world.
Mate.
That'd be crazy.
Mate, that'd be so mental. Like I don't even know what to say, man.
It's the sort of thing that you could imagine happening though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that's not out of the question. If they can bring back animals, it only takes one very, very rich person to go, you know what, I'm doing this, and then it could happen.
Yeah, rich. The thing is, I think while you've got like scientists that are doing it for the good of the world and the good of humanity and stuff by bringing back things like woolly mammoths and the Tasmanian tiger. I think it's also called the thylacine. I think
right.
I think Tasmanian tiger is almost like more of a nickname. I think it's called the thylacine. I might be wrong, but that's obviously they're doing that in a very strategic and way that's good for the ecosystem. Whereas obviously what you have with like Jurassic Park and essentially could become a real issue is you have people that are like rich but very ignorant to things like the ecosystem, the impact that it could. That they're just seeing profit. And just like, well, I've got, some people, let's face it, have more money than sense, and say for some reason like you've got, just because you're a good businessman doesn't necessarily mean that you're like overall like a well-rounded and really intelligent people. Yeah. It certainly doesn't mean that you're like a moral person or particularly wise person. And like if you had like £1 billion, say, and you were like, well, I can technically bring these animals back, but you hadn't looked into the moral or economic like repercussions of that, then yeah, you could end up with like a Jurassic Park sort of scenario. And then as you said, if when you're dealing with animals that are that big and that strong and you're relying essentially on just man-made containers, I think there's always just you're running the risk. Like, I mean, I heard the other day that funnily enough it was Paignton Zoo, because I just mentioned Paignton Zoo, didn't I, because I said that's where I saw the rhinos and the giraffes, and funnily enough I said to Em, I was like, I'm glad that didn't happen when we were there. They like in the middle of the day at Paignton Zoo, this was like a couple of weeks ago, a fully grown male chimpanzee escaped, and the frickin' zoo went into like red alert.
Oh my god!
No. And they had to like quickly like make through like these like tannoys, like tell everyone basically to like run to like one end of the zoo, and then they like cordoned off the whole section, because like male chimpanzees can be like super aggressive. Yeah. And on average, they're 4 times stronger than a fully grown male. When you add to that they have like sharp teeth and like there's stories, we talked about it on the pod before. There's stories where like a chimpanzee once bit a woman's face off. There's stories of chimpanzees literally ripping men's testicles off just with their brute strength. Like, people take that. Like, I took my freaking at the time 2-year-old daughter to the freaking Paignton Zoo last year. You do not want a fully grown, aggressive male chimpanzee running around, and that's just a chimp. Imagine now we're talking something like a T-Rex.
Do you know what I reckon is going to happen?
Jesus.
What?
When technology gets like, this is like far into the future, like actually controlling the atmosphere of another planet that we come across. And
they're thinking of trying to do that with Mars already, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
It's called terraforming.
Terraforming other planets and then controlling the atmosphere, growing whatever you want to grow there, and literally putting some of these animals, like creating an ecosystem like for them, and that having them cool. That as like the so no humans are going to come into contact. It's not going to like be a real dangerous thing, but we'd be able to like watch it.
That imagine if we could just
that'd be like the ultimate theme park.
Imagine if we just turned Mars into like Jurassic World. And it was like still Mars, but just randomly had loads of dinosaurs and like mental animals on it.
Once again, Netflix documentaries would become so much better. Imagine almost it being a bit like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Where they just put like a camera on it. Right, this is the dinosaur world, and they've just got one guy going around with the camera.
It'd almost be better for the animals because it's like they could just have free run and just like not be all like cooped up like in zoos and stuff, you know. Like,
and you could literally just send like little. I can't remember the word for it. Like, almost like spaceships, but with just like just with
Zeppelins.
No. I was gonna say
just watch them from
drones. I was gonna say drones.
Drones, yeah.
Because obviously, like, there's businesses that make loads of money nowadays just from like drone videos and photography and stuff. And you could literally just get some really good drone pilots.
Yeah.
Just go around and make full-blown documentaries. Give it to someone like
or
David
make, like,
Attenborough.
floating cities that would just like go around.
Oh, mate, now you're going fully metal drone.
They would just go around. You could just look over the top of them and see all the animals all below. Like, don't jump off.
That would be nuts.
Do you know what is it? Don't jump off.
Don't jump off and ride the pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Do you know what
Quarterless.
I've just had as a crazy thought?
What?
I know we speak about aliens sometimes on the pod, but imagine
I think
if
that's what we are.
Imagine if we didn't even like.
I think we're some aliens.
Not humans, just us.
We are aliens.
Yeah. No, like I reckon the aliens did that to this planet. They terraformed it, and now we're like the thing, and they're like that.
They're watching us.
I don't think that they terraformed it, but I think that there maybe is a small possibility that it could be like a bit.
They terraformed us.
Well, you know, like a bit like in what's the movie? You know, sequel to Alien, bit more modern. Michael Fassbender's in it. What's that called? What's that movie called? Oh, you know, I know that
Alien
loads of people
2.
out there.
I'm sure I will know.
I know that loads of people out there is like, it's that, you idiot.
Yeah.
It's got Michael Fassbender in it. It's like a sequel. Oh no, it's technically a prequel to Alien, but it was made like 10 years ago or something. And it's basically like the story of what happened before Alien, and they find this creature called the
Prometheus?
Yeah, Prometheus. And they find this creature called the Engineer, and the reason they're called the Engineers is because they're like this race of beings.
Seeding different planets.
Yeah. And they essentially, it's supposed to be like, according to that movie, the way that humans were made was they put like a drop of their DNA in like the ocean, and then that like mixed with the other natural bacteria of the earth and then that's how humans were made. And that's almost like supposed to explain like the missing link and all that stuff, which is a really cool like premise for a sci-fi movie.
If you like study DNA as well, I don't know what it is, there's this one thing, there's like a spliced part of the DNA that's,
it's a good word, that, isn't it? Spliced.
Yeah, that's different. There's something. Look into it.
Missing link.
In human
That's what I call
DNA
it,
where
missing
something is like spliced, and it's like, how did that happen?
Like
doesn't
it has
seem
been
like
genetically engineered.
that something has happened in our DNA that's made us like we are, but because of that thing, and it's like it doesn't seem to be like a natural thing that's made that happen. It's been some kind of.
There's
like,
certain things about humans which are obviously unique compared to all other great apes, and as you said, a lot of people call it like the missing link. I'm pretty sure this is still a thing. Obviously, we're not anthropologists, so if there's any genius anthropologist out there that knows better than us, then please let us know.
Yeah.
I'd love to have an anthropologist on.
Oh, that'd be great.
And talk actually more about like in depth, like the evolution of humankind and great apes in general. Like, do you know what I mean? Because even for us that are just like interested in it. Like, do you know what I mean? I know like a certain amount, but obviously to someone that just dedicates 24/7 of their life to it, I bet they would have such mad stuff to say. But yeah, I mean, if you think about all the other great ape species, like gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees and stuff, like they all have very different, they're all very distinct, like they look very different from each other. But there's certain things about humans which are very unique. Like, for example, why do we have such long hair on the top of our head? Which literally, if we didn't cut it, it would literally just keep on growing.
to the plow.
You know, I haven't cut my hair
true.
in like years
You wouldn't
now.
get that
My
on
hair's
our
getting
arms.
so long now. Whereas like gorillas and orangutans and chimps don't cut their hair. Also, why does hair grow so much more, say, on our faces and our hair compared to on our head? Sorry,
It's more pleasing for the aliens.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like we like.
They like the aesthetic.
Like, I'm quite like a hairy bloke, but even so, like the difference between the hair on my body compared to the hair that grows on my chin and my head is like it's like obviously so different.
Yeah, and the difference between the hair on you to a hair on a chimp.
Oh yeah, like, do you know what I mean? It's like it's very, very different. And I mean, is that just because we sort of invented clothes, and then as a result, over the years, we've become less hairy because we've become more reliant on clothes? But then that almost begs the question, like, well, if we were so warm originally, why did we even invent clothes? Maybe it could just be explained that as we went further into like Europe and stuff like that, like our ancestors, and it became colder and colder and colder, we just felt like it was necessary, and we just sort of like did it because we could. Because let's face it, humans often do a lot of things just because they can. They don't necessarily do it because it's what's best for you. Or do you know what I mean? Not necessarily because you need to. You do things because you can. Say earlier on we were talking about killing a woolly mammoth. If you realise that you can skin it and then you can wear this thing and it's almost like a status symbol, but then at the same time it makes you really warm, that's sort of like a win-win, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
So
where's the evidence of like the evolution of humans from being different and more hairy and stuff like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, where is the? Well, I think that is that what the missing link is as well. Like, you know, there's not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly where they think. How do I word this? Like, you know, so like I think it's widely thought of that there is a missing link in our evolution, but they don't necessarily like. I don't know like where that is, if you know what I mean. I know that the first hominid species that basically branched off from other apes was obviously Homo erectus. That was the first one, and the reason they called it Homo erectus, although that's
boner all the time.
Yeah, it's because they just had like, you know, they were gay and they had boners all the time. No, because obviously it just means like upright ape. It's just like Latin for upright ape. So it was the first ape that walked on 2 feet. They came down from the trees and they literally just started walking around on 2 feet, which is obviously very unique. And obviously, eventually, from Homo erectus, they think that we got humans. Obviously, there were lots of other different types of hominids. Obviously, the most famous ones, obviously, being Neanderthals. But there were also, what are they called? Is it Denisovans?
Denisovians.
Is it Denisovians or Denovians or something like that? We also have Homo habilis, which was like what are affectionately called hobbits, which were essentially a whole species of upright ape, which were like 3 or 4 foot tall.
That's crazy. The dwarves.
They're literally called like hobbits because they were like dwarves in like mythology usually are a little bit taller than that, and also they're quite like stocky. Whereas these little Homo habilises are literally like miniature, little like 3-4 foot tall, like quite like narrow.
Well, the difference between like a monkey and a chimp.
But the thing is, they would have been more like a human.
Spider monkeys.
Because they think they would have walked upright, so they would have just literally been like tiny humans.
Yeah.
But it's mad, isn't it?
That's crazy.
So imagine that, and it's like their whole own species of literal hobbits. So when you think about it like that, that's almost quite awe-inspiring in itself, because you're like, well, you usually think of something like a hobbit, like that's pure fantasy, but it's like, nah, if you weren't back far enough, there would have literally been humans on the earth that could have interacted with literal, like, almost like hobbits. Which is crazy.
That is crazy.
They wouldn't have, don't think, would have been wearing waistcoats and eating cheese and making tea in hobbit holes. I like the idea that they would have done.
Yeah.
But pretty savage, though. I remember, I can't remember what country it was. I can't remember if it was like New Zealand or something like that, but pretty savagely they found basically like a murder site of Homo habilis.
Oh no.
Whoa.
As in they got murdered, and it was like a cave, and I think the theory is that maybe they lived in the cave, and they can tell from like ancient scorch marks and stuff like that it looked like they were in the cave, and they think they're most likely humans. Pretty savage, really. We can be a savage species, can't we? They think that they basically blocked off the cave, and then like made like a fire going all around the entrance, and then basically like smoke and burnt them to death. And then inside the cave, there's just all these bones of these Homo habilis where they were murdered, and they can tell because obviously the fire would have an impact on like the rock and stuff like that. So they can tell that there was a big fire, and they can tell that there would have been like a line where it would have almost like been made, and they think that it would have almost been like humans did it. And then there's different theories why maybe the Homo habilis were like competing with the humans that lived in the area for food, and so the humans were like just going to get rid of them. Maybe the humans thought they were like little malevolent like
demons,
pixies, or do you know what I mean? Like maybe the humans were scared of them and thought that they were these like weird little demonic creatures or little malevolent entities. But either way, poor little buggers.
This is what I was thinking when I was saying about like terraforming Mars. Like imagine if we were able to rebuild the atmosphere. That would have allowed things like Homo erectus to develop, and we just dropped all the different kind of animals that would have been around at that time, almost built the world as it would have been back then, and just put all these apes on.
The evolution.
Yeah, and imagine we just got to see like apes turn to Homo erectus, all these different weird, like it might not even develop in the same way.
Yeah, I was going to say,
a different atmosphere,
I reckon there are so many minute factors that would go into, you know, a bit like they say with like the butterfly effect. You know, like if you went back
many variables.
If you went back in time like 5 years ago and literally just like did something 5 seconds later than you did, you could literally
change
have
the
a
whole
spiral
course of the universe.
Yeah, like I think it would be like that. I think it would almost be like impossible to replicate exactly as it was.
Imagine if we
fascinating,
recreated our own like alien though, like our own intelligent life, and it was like this completely different kind of life to humans that we are. But they were just living on Mars, and we'd created their environment.
I reckon the
and
aliens
them.
that done that to us are like laughing now here in this conversation because they're like, "Yeah,
Do you reckon
bro.
do you reckon
They've already done that to you guys."
They're picking up some radio signals somewhere in like Alpha
like,
Centauri.
look at those little guys talking about
They're
that.
catching on.
They're in Alpha Centauri right now, just like, yeah, this is
You want to do it? You got to wow yet.
You know, I definitely reckon that if humans had the ability, like if we ever have the ability to like travel so fast that we can get to like distant worlds that have like a bit like an Earth-like atmosphere but have no animals, you know that we'll be dropping in DNA and bacteria and all sorts of stuff in there and like trying to make like animal soup, you know, and then you could like leave it and come back and then think about what mental creatures could have evolved. Because it's not like you'd even have to put animals there. You could literally just put a load of bacteria and like almost like a load of like, you know how like people are so good at like making like, let's face it, like a lot of the food we eat is like bioengineered. Like we could bioengineer some bacteria and then just put it in the freaking sea there. And then it could just create some mental creature.
And imagine if it was like a different, like, you know, the
human sea
different
creature.
points in time. Like time flows differently at like that theory of like, you know,
Yeah.
like
so
in,
you could like leave for a couple of days.
yeah, and come back
and
and
it could
be
be
like a million years. Yeah, imagine that.
I wish that we could do that, guys. I wish that we
Imagine
had
if
the
it was
abilities.
like, some sort of intelligent life in the past, right, was gonna die. Its planet was ending, but they'd gotten to a similar point that we are, where they had AI and they had rocket ships. Maybe they couldn't even. Yeah, maybe they couldn't even. They hadn't mastered light speed travel, so they can't
Their
actually
last
go
ditch
themselves.
effort was just sending bacteria in
to
like a
instead-
shit.
Yeah, with like AI, and they dropped it onto our planet, and we're like the
Process.
we're-
Well, the end result,
protege
yeah.
of this weird alien race that have now gone long extinct, and we're just like their bacteria that are living on, and the
Mate.
humans that have lived.
I mean,
Crazy, man.
truth is stranger than fiction, they say.
I
You
think
know?
it's something like that, man.
I mean, who knows? That's part of the fun, though, isn't it? It's like we don't know. It's all a mystery. And even if somebody
The great mystery.
even if like the most uptight, by the book person was like, that sounds ridiculous. That's like something from a sci-fi. Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Have you seen an octopus?
Yeah. I've seen an octopus, bro. But it's like, you know, it's like, and I'm not saying even that it did, but I'm just saying, like, look, we obviously love looking into the science of it. You know, it's not like, you know, we're crazy Christians, no offense, crazy Christians, that are like, you know, like, how would you get a human from a chimpanzee? Which is like such an ignorant statement, because nobody's ever claiming that humans do come from chimpanzees. Humans come from, like, chimpanzees and humans come from a completely different link, you know, like lineage of apes, and our like closest common ancestor is like obviously before even Homo erectus was even evolved, so which was like millions of years ago. So no one's even like claiming that. But like even with, you know, looking into the science as best as you can, like you can't say that didn't happen. I mean, I'm not saying it did happen, but I'm just saying like the fact that none of us know makes it really fun to speculate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's just like, well, yeah, maybe that did happen.
Maybe it did.
Maybe some ancient civilization did just come and put some bacteria in there, or in the sea.
Maybe a few different kinds did.
I mean, if you want to go on a wider frickin' scale, I'm pretty damn sure it's still like a mystery, like how the Big Bang even happened.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure relatively recently, like I'm talking about within the last couple of years, scientists now, because originally for like a long time they thought the Big Bang was like the origins of like all like life in the universe and like the stars and everything. And apparently now there's like a really big theory that before the Big Bang happened, there was like another universe that then like imploded into like basically nothingness and then exploded again.
Yeah.
So like that in itself is like, if you want to go beyond even
It's a never
biological life forms, you could even go into like the life of the universe on that level. Do you know what I mean? And just keep going like, whoa. The more you think about it, the more you're like, hey, maybe there is a freaking god, or like just some sort of, maybe, you know, when you hear people sometimes talk about like how you know, you could literally just go home and make like a terrarium and literally just have like a big glass bulb, and you could literally just put like some cress in there and a couple of wood lice and some chalk and some of that, and then literally just from that a whole ecosystem would bloom. We could just, the whole universe could be that, because size is relative. Like, as I said, like, we're relatively big, but then compared to what? Well, compared to a blue whale, we're tiny. You know, compared to an ant, we are like godlike. So size is relative. What we think of as like size comparisons, maybe there's a creature out there that is so big that that the whole entire universe to them is a petri dish.
That is mental. That is so mental.
Like, because I said size is relative. So although that might be incomprehensible for us to get our heads around, it let's face it, bacteria to us is invisible. You know, we used to think
bacteria, it ain't.
We used to think the atom was the smallest thing in the universe, and then one day, because a new superpowered telescope was invented, they managed to cut open the atom, and basically like a load of stuff came out of it, and then that was like the new smallest thing in the universe. Do you know what I mean? So you just don't know, man. Do you?
Crazy, man.
It literally is so crazy.
We're getting deep this week.
We are getting deep. We've come to the end of the first hour, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week. In the second hour, we're going to carry on talking about loads of stuff. We'll probably try and bring it full circle, find out a little bit more about this whale. And I want to talk about one of the most amazing Roman emperors that ever lived that definitely deserves a movie that I'd never heard of until recently. And I think it's criminal that he's not better known about. So we're going to find out about him.
You will open Pandora's box many times in your life. No, we probably really shouldn't open that box. Look, I've got one rule. Here.
Open your mind. Open your mind.
That's very relevant for today's pod because we are going balls deep, baby. We're going balls deep on the mysteries of not just human origins and on the origins of all life, but also on the origins of the universe itself. Come with us on this adventure, our friends. Come with us on this exploration. Drew was just saying about how he just thinks it's mental about, the whole concept behind Interstellar, the movie with Matthew McConaughey and is it Matt Damon, and how time could be, how it would literally a year, 60 years on one planet could be like
just from
2
being in a
days.
different place. It could change.
I was going to explain to you, wasn't I, like how they almost explain it in the movie, because I think it's really interesting how they do it with the piece of paper.
I wonder also if the explanation in the movie is real, because I hope it is.
Apparently, I remember because I did a review on the movie after watching it, and apparently it's really accurate.
Really?
Apparently almost all of the bits in it, obviously there's certain, but it is a sci-fi movie, so there's certain liberties that have been taken, but apparently when it comes to the actual science of it, it's all based on theory, but
don't
that
take
theory
our word
is
for
well
that.
respected.
Don't take our word for that. Do your own research, because at the end of the day, obviously we talk about all sorts of stuff on here, and we do not claim to be experts on everything. We just do our best.
Mysterious discussion.
I think the way they describe it with black holes and how you can actually traverse time and stuff like that is, let's say this piece of paper is time, and we're here, and this is in the future.
Right.
But if you get a black hole, it sucks in the time almost.
Yeah.
And bends it, so those 2 points are right next to each other.
So to you, that's like a day.
Yeah. Or if you went through, I believe, if you go through, is it what do they describe it as? A wormhole. Then you go directly through.
Right.
And you completely traverse that time.
Thus, obviously making it very short amount of time to you, but to people that are going the full, not going through the wormhole, it's
and it wouldn't necessarily always need to be from end to end. It could be from here to here. To here,
well, it's a little bit similar with that, isn't it? They think about how we're going to be able to eventually accomplish space travel, very, very extreme distances, don't they? By manipulating things like that, because it's essentially the same thing. And I think was it on the pod we were talking about, and I was saying about a bit how if you put ants on a bunch of string, they would just see it as going from you could only go from one end to one end or around the string, which is a bit like how we see time and distance. But obviously we know, as an outside observer, that actually you could just take the string and put it together. In which case you're bypassing all of that. There's theoretically, maybe potentially, we could do that with space.
It would almost be like the wormhole is that person putting the string together, and we're just the ant that needs to go through it.
That's a crazy
and also the experience of time that you can have just in our normal linear time when you do something, or time can seem to speed up or slow down. That is an experience that you can have as a human being. You know? Or for me, in psychedelic experiences and stuff, it's you can go through experiences that seem like a lot longer than they actually are, where a minute could seem like an hour, or an hour could seem like a day, in these different experiences. And it's it's crazy that your consciousness can actually experience that as something so different and so vast. You can go through things and think this is gonna be forever. It feels almost like forever, and it's like, how can you explain the feeling of forever? You know, it's like, but it's something you can experience.
That
which
always
is crazy.
freaks me out when you hear stories of people that have like taken drugs or hallucinatives, and then they'll almost go into this point where they're living a completely new life.
Yeah, like a loop.
Yeah, like you say, they are living forever. They feel like time has infinitely passed and will infinitely pass, but in reality, it's only been like an hour. Crazy,
Mate,
crazy.
That is crazy, isn't it? That is freaking nuts, man. Well, you hear that, don't you? Like people, I know that I've heard. Was it? I think Joe Rogan might have been the one that said it. He said he had an ayahuasca trip once, and he lived out almost like what felt to him almost like an entire lifetime.
Yeah.
Is it Salvia that does that a lot to people?
Yeah, Salvia is mental.
I feel like I've heard that Salvia is like one of the crazy.
He came out of his trip, and obviously
ones.
it'd been like a few hours.
Yeah,
he felt like he experienced. Oh, and also was it?
I think that was Salvia.
Or was it Bert?
I think Salvia is the one I've heard a lot before. Like there's one guy who was like living a life where he was underwater.
Yeah,
and he lived his entire life.
My God.
Made a whole new family. Had wife, had kids.
That is mad.
He was swimming to the surface one day and saw these like people calling to him. And it was actually just the people that were like in the room with him when he was doing it, and he was like starting to come back to life. I think you might have told me that actually.
Wasn't it? Didn't Bert Kreischer, who's that American comedian, you know, his friend Ari Shafir, like spiked him with LSD and that, and it was this whole controversial things, and they obviously fell out for ages about it and stuff because it was against Bert's will. And if you think about it, it's a pretty savage thing to do to someone, even like a really close
MDMA,
friend.
Yeah. And it was before he was just about to go on tour as
well. And Bert had never done it before as well. He'd never done. I think
it wasn't LSD. It was MDMA, and before a podcast, he went to do the podcast with him, and he did.
But didn't even Bert say that he like lived like years in a different dimension? Or like not different dimension, but just like he experienced living life for like years in like a different realm.
I don't know if that's the same story as what I'm thinking with him spiking him, like because it was like but his basically his family was there. His family was there, and he was about to leave the next morning for his tour as well. Yeah. So like, but he got like spiked.
And he had a really bad
in
trip.
Between doing the podcast, he started like coming up while they were in the middle of doing the podcast. And
can you watch the podcast? Do you think?
No, he never released it because it was like it was just like you know.
I wish you could watch.
Yeah, I remember when I was hearing the story, I was like, I wish I could watch that. But then he just said it was so hard. He had to get on a plane and they had to go, and then he was still. You know, he got to the Comedy Store the next day and he was just about to go on, and he had to have this talk with Joey Diaz and that to try and like kind of level him out and calm down and everything still. And he was like, still just completely feeling it. Like,
yeah, I remember hearing that apparently like Bert Kreischer like eventually like forgave Ari, but apparently to this day Bert Kreischer's missus just hates Ari. Yeah. She's just like, can't believe you did that, you absolute like.
That is a mental thing to do to someone, isn't it? That's crazy.
Yeah, apparently he's a pretty crazy guy, that Ari, isn't he? I know he's like.
Lives life on the edge, man.
Yeah, like big friends with Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz and Bert and all of that lot. But yeah, it seems like he's a bit of like a loose cannon.
I want to go to that comedy store.
Well, the one that Joe Rogan's made in Texas.
Yeah.
I know that like Castillo's been there a couple of times, hasn't he? And yeah, it would definitely be cool, man. I mean, if we're ever in Texas, we'd have to definitely go there. That'd be awesome,
Austin,
dude.
Baby.
Austin, Texas. Yeah, for sure, dude. Should we quickly just find out the rest of the thing about this whale a minute?
The whale.
And then I want to talk to you guys about something really cool. So it just says, a massive extinct whale may have just stolen the title of the biggest animal ever. According to a paper published today in Nature, the creature, dubbed Parachetus colossus, could have weighed as much as 340 tons. That's nearly 75% more. What? More than 75% more than the largest blue whales. The all-time record holder. That estimate comes from a 39 million year old partial skeleton unearthed in Peru. Even if the calculation turns out to be an overestimate, the animal was clearly huge, experts tell the Washington Post. The rotund giant would likely have been too sluggish to chase small but abundant critters like krill, the researchers say. Instead, its manatee-like proportions suggest it fed on the sea floor, though without a skull to examine. Whether it was similarly vegetarian or preferred a more carnivorous diet remains a mystery. Okay, so it's still a very mysterious animal.
Have you guys seen the drawing that they've made of it? I just searched it up and it looks hilarious.
But it does look quite manatee-like, but you can see it's like a very early species of whale because it almost like still has a bit arms and that. and it looks a bit weird, man.
Like crawling across the ground.
Yeah, so check it out, everyone. So if you look it up, as I said, 39-year-old, million-year-old Peruvian fossil, whale fossil, or as I said, if you want to try and type this in, it's Paracetus colossus. That's Peru, like Peru, Cetus, all one word, Paracetus, and then colossus, as you would just spell colossus.
Paracetus colossus.
Yeah, look at that, Drew. It's like a weird, like, it's still got like arms a little bit,
It's got his tiny little arms.
and it's almost got like a little tadpole-like tail. It's really weird.
It's like a sausage meat.
But then imagine that just being like bigger
That's
than a blue
crazy.
whale. That's crazy, you know?
Weird.
Yeah.
It's the little legs that it almost looks like a tadpole, but then you've got to remember how big it is.
Yeah, but like 75%
Yeah.
heavier than a blue whale.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy. I hope they find more fossils of it and be able to put a bit more of like a precise estimation on what it would look like and all that stuff. Because I say it'd been really cool if they found a skull, because they don't even know if it was herbivorous or carnivorous at the moment. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I want to talk to you guys about. And I could not believe I'd never heard of this guy before. It was a Roman emperor called Maximinus Thrax. And it is literally criminal that a movie has not been made about this guy. Like, I can't believe not only that he is not more famous, but that there was never a movie made about him. He is, like, far more interesting than the majority of Roman emperors that you would have already heard of. Because I think even for people that don't know much about Roman history, and I don't claim to be an expert, but you know, you hear obviously about like Nero, Commodus, like Hadrian, Julius Caesar, obviously probably the most famous one. You hear like different names thrown around quite a lot. Don't you? Marcus Aurelius, obviously famous Stoic. Obviously Hadrian's quite famous in this country because obviously he built Hadrian's Wall and stuff like that. But you know, you hear about a lot of different sort of like names that you know were Roman emperors, or even if you don't know that they were Roman emperors, they are famous because they were Roman emperors. But this guy Maximinus Thrax, I couldn't believe how fascinating it was. Apparently, he not only is he an interesting distinction. I'm just going to say this off the top of my head. I can't remember if this is 100% true. I'll look into it in a minute. I think he was either the only or one of the only ever emperors that was born as just like a normal man and then rose up to become Roman emperor.
Cool.
But the thing that makes him really interesting is apparently he was like the largest. He basically served as a general in the Roman army, worked his way up. But apparently he was like the most colossal like human on the planet at the time.
What?
Apparently there are like like different historical sources, some which are considered a bit more accurate than others, because some of them are written after he died by historians that say he lived 100 years after, and they're obviously not considered as reliable studies as people that were born as contemporary studies. Because obviously contemporary study would be like if you two wrote about me. That's obviously going to be way more accurate than somebody that wrote about me 100 years after I died, because it's like, well, they didn't know me, so they weren't alive at the same time. So obviously contemporary accounts are obviously by far the most sort of trustworthy, you know, the way the historians look into them. But they're, regardless of whether they're contemporary or not, all of the accounts say that he was actually scarily large. Yeah. Apparently, like, you would walk into a room and you would like people would met him and they would just be like shocked at the size of him. And he was a Roman general. Apparently, he was so big that even in like what was then known as like Germania, so like the modern sort of ancestors like Northern Europeans, were considered like much bigger than Romans at the time. And they always used to give the Romans a very good fight, because the Romans had way better tactics and everything, but these like Germanians were just basically like barbarians. They're like absolute burkers. They were like giant, freaking broad, wearing like bear like you know, heads, and with like these massive axes, and you know, were just complete berserkers, like just so big and strong, and just their bloodlust and everything was just like ruthless. But apparently even the Germanians, when he went and fought there, would just like tower over them. But let's try
a big show.
Yeah, let's try and find out a bit more about him then, because as I said, I don't claim to be an expert on him, but I remember I started hearing about him, Maximinus, and
what
I thought,
a cool name, by the way, Maximinus Thrax.
And
that sounds like comedically cool.
I started hearing about him, and I just sort of like, why have I never heard of this guy before? And why has there not been a movie made about him? Because I want to hear a movie about this guy that was like the most fearsome Roman warrior that ever lived, that went from like literally being born in like essentially as like working class Rome or whatever, into literally becoming emperor. Like that's a story that needs to be told.
We should make one, man.
We should.
We should make one.
Make a movie. A really, like, low-budget movie.
Me and
about
Drew will do the thing where you, like, put your knees in your shoes and we'll
Yeah,
be next
yeah.
to you and you'll just be, like, really big.
Oh, I would love that. So let's have a little look up at this guy. So Maximinus, original name Gaius Julius Verus Maximinus, also called Maximin or Maximinus Thrax, the Thracian, born in 173 Thrace, which is in modern-day Bulgaria and portions of Turkey. Died in 238 near Aquileia, now in Italy. He was the first soldier who rose through the ranks to become Roman emperor. His reign marked the beginning of a half-century of civil war in the empire. Originally from Thrace, he is said to have been a shepherd before enlisting in the army. There, his immense strength attracted the attention of Septimius Severus, who was the emperor from 193 to 211. Under Severus Alexander, Maximinus held high command in the army of the Rhine, and when Severus was murdered, he was proclaimed emperor by the Rhine army. That's another cool thing I remember reading about him, like, because he was such a good leader and was just so awe-inspiring and so intelligent, as well as just being such a force that they literally just like all his men loved him. So he was just like literally like, you're emperor now, which is quite cool, isn't it? Like, he must have been like quite an awe-inspiring guy to be around.
The people's choice.
Like, he never even asked to become it. It was like they were like, no, we want you as the emperor. Like, that's cool, isn't it? It almost makes it like a much more almost like attractive than, because there's so many like power-hungry little politicians, aren't there, that are trying to sell themselves, and you think, worm, But anyway, where was he? Maximinus spent most of his reign fighting invading tribes along the Danube and the Rhine. The numerous milestones displaying his name attest to his energetic reconstructions of the roads in these regions. In 238, a group of landowners in Africa, discontented with imperial taxation, rebelled, killed their tax collectors, and proclaimed the aged Gordian emperor. The revolt was soon suppressed by the governor of Numidia. The Roman Senate, however, had used the revolt as an excuse to depose Maximinus and recognize Gordian, and they responded to Gordian's defeat and death by proclaiming two new Roman emperors, Pupienus and Balbinus. The army insisted that these two aged senators accepted the nomination of Gordanian's grandson, Gordanian III. Maximinus had descended into Italy to halt the revolt, but his army was delayed by stubborn resistance at Aquileia. The army lost confidence in him and murdered him and his son in spring 238. That's brutal, isn't it?
Damn.
The troops in Rome killed Pupienus and Balbinus and declared Gordian III Maximinus' successor. Rome was like a very political and underhanded society in a lot of ways, wasn't it? To the modern historian, Maximinus' reign appears as the beginning of half a century of crisis and chaos. At the time, however, he must have seemed an anomaly who briefly interrupted the military monarchy founded by Septimius Severus.
Septimius Severus.
Let's try and find out a bit more about his like size in that day, because that's what I think is really interesting. Just almost like it was intriguing when I was reading about him and just going on about how he was just like this colossal.
I'd love to know how tall he actually was. Like if he was like 7 foot tall.
Yeah, there's varying accounts. I think people don't know for sure. All they know is that apparently like there's different, because obviously they used to write very poetically back in those days, and I think there are accounts where they say things like even men that towered above others, he would tower above, and stuff like that. So you're like, oh, so he must have been pretty damn tall, because they're saying that basically he was like really tall, even compared to really tall people.
Whoa, if that's true. According to Historia Augusta, he was of such size, so Cordus reports, that men said he was 8 feet tall.
I mean, it could have happened, because I think the world record for like the tallest man that we know is something like, isn't he like 8 foot 11 inches or something like that? I think that's the tallest man in human history. So, I mean, the odd random anomalies do make it to around 8 foot. It's obviously it's exceedingly rare.
8 foot 6 inches is what people are saying here. That is crazy.
You can see his bust here as well. So obviously, like a lot of other Roman emperors, there was a bust of his head made. You can tell, like, he was he looked like quite like a meaty boy. Do you know what I mean? Like, he looks almost like he's got the face of a gnarly 1980s rugby player. You know what I mean? Yeah, pretty cool though, man. I mean, I just thought though, like, that would make a killer movie, don't you reckon?
Yeah.
Just this like guy that was born into like humble beginnings as like a little shepherd, became like one of the best warriors in the Roman Empire. Like rose up and these epic battles along the Danube and the Rhine.
Yeah, even that seeing that in a movie would look awesome.
It would almost be a bit like the beginning of Gladiator, but then there's just this colossal dude just like fighting all these massive like barbarians and that, and then like just hearing you can imagine like making a real like almost like tearjerker like good scene as well, where it's
When
like
he
the
dies
emperor's
at the
died, who's gonna be the emperor? They're like Maximinus.
You do one just pans across. He's like 8 foot tall, so you just see him above everyone
on like a hill covered in blood with like 1 foot on a stone. And it's like, you know, there's all like smoke and fog around and stuff.
Have you ever seen a world like a cocktail?
Yeah, man. Yeah, if you don't know what we're referring to, go check out our video on our YouTube. We years ago, for people that don't know, we had some guests in who were doing the Guinness World Record, and at the time it was just before they did it, and now they've successfully did it. They did the Guinness World Record for the largest ever Negroni cocktail, and it's literally in the Guinness Book World Records now. It was 2 guys that teamed up. One of them, David, who owns the Bristol Dry Gin Company.
Bristol Dry Gin.
He gave us that very kindly as a gift when he came in.
Still haven't drunk it all yet. Let's get on it, guys.
Yeah, we should get on it. Yeah, cheeky little gin. So he very kindly gave us that, and he paired it with, what was the other guy's name? Can you remember? I know that David was the guy with the Bristol Gin.
Ollie?
No. Oh, I'm really sorry, man. I can't remember your name, dude. I'm so sorry. But yeah, he teamed up with another guy who owns Rock Salt, which is a restaurant in Bristol. Really good rock salt. It serves like a combination of Indian and Chinese food. Go and check it out if you're in Bristol area. Really, really well thought of restaurant. And is it Alex? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we made a sort of promo / advert-y thing for the event, and me and Drew wrote a song. And then we went and filmed a video for it on the Valley of the Rocks. Should we play it? Should we play it?
Yeah, man, play it.
Yeah, we're going to play it, guys. I'm sorry, indulge us a little bit. I think we owe it to ourselves to play this, only personally, because obviously it was quite a lot of work, our end. I mean, any sort of like musicians out there, I'm sure like guys, you know, like Joe and obviously Hen from Shoot the Moon, they'll appreciate that this
started with a loop.
It's not like this took like an hour, you know, like literally like I
took at least 2.
I came up with like the original, yeah, I came with the original melody, yeah, it took about 3. I came up with the original melody just at home. I remember I just on the guitar I was like, that's that. Well, I think I came up with just more like the lyric. Like, have you ever seen? Yeah. And then obviously I went over yours the next day,
and I had all my loop stuff set up. Didn't I? Yeah, so we just like.
You pushed my vocals to the limit, because originally I was just gonna sing, "You could swim in it, baby." Oh, yeah, you could swim in it, baby. Yeah, no, I could just swim in it, baby, all night. And then you were like, "No, I can see it being like, baby." So then, yeah, I pushed my vocals to the limit and actually managed to do that. So that was quite cool. But we made this like 80s, it was like this cheesy 80s video, essentially, on the Valley of the Rocks in Devon. We went to a lot of effort to these guys, man. And yeah, we came up with this video and this song, which we will show you shortly. The reason I want to show you guys as well is because whenever we've shown people in the past, they've been like, "Oh man, that's like really good. Like, how come I've never seen that before?" And I'm like, "Well, you tell me, you know. How do I find it, guys?"
Just search up world's largest Negroni.
Yeah?
Yeah.
World's.
There you go.
Yeah. Woohoo! Yeah, so
Have you ever seen a world?
sorry if that just burst your eardrums. Oh, sorry guys.
This is the soundtrack to that movie we're talking about.
Yeah.
Along the river. Pretend that's the river.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Ed from Rock Salt
Ed,
in Bristol.
Ed.
On the 22nd of May, Sunday, we are breaking the Guinness World Record for the world's largest Negroni.
Check out those moves.
Follow us on Instagram at world's largest
Check out Bullwinkle's moves, man.
And I am David from Bristol Dry Gin. We're making the gin for the world's largest Negroni. You can pre-buy a bottle before the event. You can buy a bottle on the event.
Beautiful scenery as well.
You can buy a bottle after the event.
What that overly epic shot that is.
Have you ever seen a world cocktail? World's largest ever Negroni cocktail. 600 liters of
Boot shot.
Yeah, man. Magnums, baby. Solo shot.
You could swim in it, baby.
So there you go.
Man, I miss doing little projects like that.
Yeah,
so much fun.
Yeah, well, we made one last sort of like winter. We made a follow-up to Jimmy O'Malley, Jingle Balls, the Tale of Jimmy O'Malley, and we made freaking Jimmy O'Malley 2, Part 2, to stand vigil with a visceral cause. But to be honest, it was just an absolute flop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we put so much effort into that.
Yeah, it was a lot of effort for like.
It's
actually
probably about a week's worth of studio work recording the song.
Probably longer.
Yeah, because it's like a 7-8 minute long song as well. So obviously me and Drew, we wrote all the music. Me and Drew both playing in the track. Obviously I wrote all the lyrics to it. We spent ages recording it.
Then we play that as well.
If people don't mind listening to it, but just as
it might get like 5 more listeners. Then
people are just going to turn off the freaking episode now. We don't hate.
But I do want to know as well why the quality looks rubbish as well. So maybe if you click it and then actually click video link where it says video link, and then you can change the quality there. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I tried to do that, didn't I? But then it just stopped it.
Yeah, look.
There you go.
Yeah,
4K, baby.
4K.
Yeah, so obviously, as I
make
said,
it bigger.
we recorded it all, and then naturally, we sort of listened to it, and then we ended up taking things out, which we'd spent ages recording, because we thought actually it's actually worse with it in, and then it took us quite a while to get to the end sort of product, and then once that had done, we went right up into the Quantock Hills, and we spent a couple of days recording this video, like full days. I spent some money on getting some different props and that. Some of them I already had, to be fair. But we did this whole song. It's supposed to be like almost like a short film. So it's like, I think of it more as a short film than like a music video. It's just a short film that's made almost like a musical, I guess. It's like a short film, but it's told through a song. So yeah, this is our the Tale of Jimmy O'Malley Part 2, to stand vigil with a visceral cause. But as I said, we put loads of effort into it, and I was hoping it was going to be quite like a. I was just saying not like a hit, obviously, but I thought it was going to get some interaction. I think barely anybody watched it. So we're
Consider this to be the director's cut, ladies and gents.
But yeah, considering obviously it was like a bit of a flop essentially, there's just obviously not any point in us doing it again, because it's not worth our time to put all our effort into these projects. If let's face it, if nobody wants to watch them, which is fair enough, then it's not worth our time. We enjoy doing them. We love doing them. It's really fun. But
I probably enjoyed Negroni Cocktail more than this one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably just because it was easier. Don't you think?
Yeah, easier and more fun. Just more like.
I mean, we recorded the Negroni Cocktail one really quickly. It's a much shorter piece of music.
Like the way of doing all this in scenes and that, it was like.
Well, this was like a story.
Yeah.
As I said, this is like a short film, whereas the other one was more like a promo, so it was a lot more simple to film. The other one was like almost like a cheesy music video with a bit of like promo in there. Whereas this is like this is a story, isn't it? It's just following the story of Jimmy O'Malley. So the lyrics, I mean, obviously we're talking
probably
about
could have
the
done with
lyrics
some better actors than me as well. So
what are you on about, mate?
Yeah.
But like, obviously we're talking over it, so you can't really hear. But the lyrics is explaining the story of Jimmy O'Malley. So it's letting you know the storyline as the song's going on. So between the video and the lyrics, you can really put together the story.
Picture like a weird mixture between this and the Negroni jingle, and that's what the video of Thrax could be, ladies and gents.
Yeah, innit?
Like, that is pretty bad, to be fair.
What are you on about, mate? Yeah, but it's like the beauty's in the fact that it's bad. It's like why I love like 80s action movies and like low budget horror movies. It's like they're good because they're not very good, you know? But it's getting the balance.
Yeah, I don't know if we got the balance right.
I reckon we did get the balance right. I just reckon there's that people like, are like, I don't know if I'm going to dedicate 8 minutes of my life to watching this. That's what I think it probably
is. Look at that sun there. Look at that shot.
Yeah, look at that. Who's that? Oh, terrifying. That's freaking the ancient demon lord Krampus, baby. But terror's out there somewhere. Listen to those freaking sound effects. Sword clash in the start. How could I hope to fade?
Oh yeah, that's some good filming.
Yeah, man. Epic. Death of good.
That is such a sick shot. I love that shot.
Because foretold you are the one. I do remember you saying that you were enjoying the acting at the time, Adrian. I remember you specifically said you enjoyed doing the acting. I remember you saying that you were surprised at how much you were getting into it.
Yeah.
I think the song itself, because obviously, even though it's a song, the first part of the track, which is still this part, it's more just like descriptive because it has to tell the story of what's going on and who Jimmy O'Malley actually is and why Krampus is coming after him. But I think the song actually gets really good once it gets to the bridge, and then I actually think the song itself gets good because then there's much less lyrics. Because we like build it up to a climax after what happens in a minute, which is when Krampus fights the Wizard Schlieb, which is Drew's character. So Krampus and the Wizard Schlieb are now fighting. The Wizard Schlieb's supposed to be like a Gandalf, generic, wise, powerful Gandalf-type figure. Ready? Boom, headshot. Oh, made me stumble, man. Look, it's snowing as well, epic. Look at that sword fighting choreography. Oh, mate, headbutt. Right, boom. Have that. That acting, man. So I reckon the song actually genuinely gets quite good at it. Like personally, like I'm happy enough with it anyway. Sort of like a little bit Opeth-y vibes,
Yeah. Video game shot.
Yeah, man. Drew's got his 6th solo coming in now. Your solos, Drew, I always think sounds like, so you're like buttery. Do you know what I mean?
Buttermilk baby.
Just very smooth.
How about that shot?
Yeah, man, that's good. That's like genuinely quite good acting, Bullwinkle. I mean, probably like Home and Away level, but
Yeah.
Neighbours. Check out that freaking makeup effects, baby. Oh, am I gonna kill him? Am I gonna kill him? Oh no, he's got away.
On the beat drop he runs.
Check out that drum machine as well. Oh, he's managed to wound Krampus. Oh, he's wounded him again. Oh, my back. Oh, flying punch. Superman punch. Oh, tore my tendons, mate. Oh.
That's cages, remember?
Oh yeah, man. Oh, I've got the blood on his hands, guys. He's finally killed Krampus. And as I strike the terror down, I took up the mantle and the godly crown. So now I realize, to achieve the size of speed, this brand new guy. Oh, wait a minute.
What's he doing?
What's he doing? Oh my god. Is he becoming Krampus? Is he becoming Krampus? You'll never know, because there's not going to be a follow-up, because no one bloody watched it. How many views have we got? Let me know. Let's just what? Who the hell was that? Let's see how many views that's got. It's got 52 views. It's got 52 views and it's got 2 comments. One says love it, which is obviously really good.
Thanks, Nerd Pants.
Thanks, Nerd Pants.
There you go.
And then we got another comment from Sam Peeps. Shout out Sam Peeps as well,
Shout
saying
out to
that was
Peeper.
brilliant. Looked like a fun day. So we very much appreciate Sam Peeps and Nerd Pants' comment. And to the 52 people that viewed that, probably half of which was us.
For me.
Yeah. But as I said, man, like it was really fun.
Tough ground.
I think if we ever have like a guest on again that's just doing something like a world record, like we did with had with Ed and David, because that was cool. And I think the Negroni cocktail one actually was way more successful than the other one.
Yeah,
It got way more views.
Catching
People
those,
looked at it more.
I think where you really take time with something, and like unless you're doing it and it's like at the level of what else is going out on that level, it's almost it just does look it's nice that it's just like quite funny. You can tell that it's like that we've done it ourselves and stuff, but it is so far from actual like filmic level of like being that then people will just be, do you know what I mean? It's like a bit of a weird in between. It's not like so slapdash like the kind of Negroni one where it's just fun and just like blah 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 blah. I think that can really work well. And then there's the other side, which is like Netflix movie or something. And it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like we spent a lot of time on it, but it's never going to be as good as something like that.
I don't know. I don't think that's why it's not so successful, because I don't think that matters so much. I mean, I think there's a lot of like low budget short films and stuff that like are very successful. I mean, obviously the first ever Star Wars: A New Hope was done on a really low budget. Obviously ours was a much lower budget than that. But what I'm getting at, and I say a lot of horror movies that are very charming, a lot of like old action movies that are like pretty poor really. Do you know what I mean? You're not watching it, it's like it's not even really believable, but I think you're enjoying it for what it is. Do you know what I mean? So I think that I think that the fact that it's almost like quite hilarious, I think, in my opinion, adds to it more, because I really like we've got a friend called like Luke Rose, and me and him very much over the years have really enjoyed watching like really awful horror movies together, really awful action movies, but they're like, as we always say, they're like so bad that they're good. And I think ours is almost like a bit like that. I think also what you add on to it is because of the song, it's very long, and it's almost like quite like an Opeth-y style track.
I think as well, like to really get into what a song's about, like I know more about that whole story because we talked about it so much, or even when you were talking about it then, like I remember as we were doing it, like I knew the story so much from that, but like still when I listen to the song, I don't get that from the song as much. Do you know what I mean? No, like, but I failed, mate. But I fail. I am like that all the time because I say that before.
You don't ever notice to lyrics.
No, so I don't know. I don't know how many people actually do on the level, say someone like you do with like a story and stuff. You know,
I think someone like
so
Josh
visually, it's really got to like explain that in a way that, you know, if you looked at that like analytically with what's going on with the video and what's going on with the word of the songs,
then you can get it.
Yeah, but I don't think many people will be listening so intently to the lyrics of the songs. I agree. Do you know what I mean?
I think they're probably just not willing to give that level of attention to it. As I said, I know that
it's more like visual. That sounds cool in the background. What's going on visually?
I know someone obviously like our mate Jeff, like so Bullwinkle's brother. Obviously, mine and Drew's like very like old friend. I know that from what Josh is like, I know that Josh would, because I know for a fact, just obviously from being friends with Josh for a long time, like me and Josh can talk for hours about like in depth about like lyrics and what the song is about and things like that. Like we love that. You though, completely obviously different. Like you love music just as much as us, but you could like a song even more than me, and I'll be like, oh yeah, it's really cool. The lyrics are like, you know, that line like blah 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 blah, and that's about that. And you're like. Oh right, yeah, like I just didn't even really pay attention, man. To be honest, I'm just like, yeah, the song sounds cool. I mean, I think obviously,
it's more for the music for me, the musicality of it, and just like how epic it sounds and stuff like that, production, like all of that stuff. Like I'm like,
I think because of my love of like fantasy mixed in with my love of being silly, mixed in with my love of music, like that's obviously a very specific set of traits that I have, which not obviously necessarily that many people else are going to have. You know, my love of sort of, as I said, like 80s movies and stuff, which are almost, as I said, almost like so bad that they're actually sort of good somehow. that's quite like a specific set of things, isn't it? So like, while I do think there are some people that could appreciate, like I remember at the time, like Josh said he loved it. Like Josh said he loved it, but would that appeal to like many, like the majority of people? I don't think it probably would. Especially as I said, like even if you take a band like Opeth, as I said, it's like an Opeth-y style track, sort of. And obviously, like, you know, I'm not saying it's as good as Opeth, but I'm just saying it's in the sort of the style almost of like an Opeth-y track. Like, even with a band like Opeth, who are one of the most successful bands of their type, they're still like a cult classic rather than a bestseller. Like, they don't headline even metal concerts.
And even with those, like...
They're long, proggy songs that aren't for everyone.
Yeah, and musically, like, they're very complex in that, but that's what draws me to Opeth. It's not so much the lyrics.
Yeah, whereas obviously I love both.
Yeah, and I can imagine they're quite, like... in depth, like the lyrics of Opeth and everything.
But even if, say, like as I said with Opeth, they're insanely successful. But even say, like, you know, they're not with like the big metal concerts and stuff. Like, they wouldn't necessarily like headline Download or anything. I'm sure some of the smaller metal concerts they would more than big enough to headline. But you know, the very big metal concerts, I don't think Opeth would. You know, they're still, as I said, more of a cult classic than a bestseller. Hugely, obviously successful, but if you look at, say, like even on Spotify, obviously they have massive listens because it's all relative. But compared to, say, some other metal bands and stuff, like not so much. If you compared how many songs they've been listening to compared to like Slipknot, obviously, or Metallica, or even like slightly lesser known bands like Slayer or Megadeth and that. Yeah, it's a niche thing. I think a lot of people, and I think it's one of the reasons why bands like Nirvana are so successful. They have quite a short attention span. They want like a 3-minute in-your-face banger where you don't even need to know the story.
This is what I was going to add on to it. I've just searched up then. I know this is about social media, so I suppose this would be for video and music, but it works for music as well. According to people's studies and stuff now, you only have 13 milliseconds to catch someone's attention. They're scrolling between things. And obviously,
we're not going to catch that in the video.
That changes if they already know you or they know what they're expecting from your work. If they're already a fan, then you're going to have their attention span for longer because you'll have built that respect, built that rapport with them already. But if you are someone that, you know, for us, a lot of people would just be stumbling across it,
especially
it
with
wouldn't catch
starting
their
with some
attention.
words.
Yeah.
It's like, right, I've got to read something straight away. Like, some people, I think, would be intrigued by that. But even think about that. Like, if that's in a movie, like, you're sitting at a movie theater, you're already committed because your ass is on the seat, and you're like, so when the credits come down or the things come down, the start of a Star Wars thing, and that starts coming down, and that you're like, I'm reading this, I'm like invested in this. But for someone who's just kind of coming across it, it'd be harder to get that you know.
So
if
and
we
you would know
started
what
the
you're
scene
getting into as well. Like
if we started with the head chop, and then put like previously, I mean, like that might have got more like things, but it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it? You know. Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? I think it's just one of those things, and sometimes it can seem almost like weird to you. Like, I've literally just put on my Instagram before, just almost like for fun, like me just recorded on my phone, recording like me, like just in like shorts and a t-shirt in one of the rooms in my house at home, like just doing like just doing a track or like a cover of a track or something. Just on my acoustic, as I said, obviously just recorded on my phone, so it's awful quality, and it's got like 10 times more interaction.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's crazy,
and you think in your head, like, that took me, as long as it took me. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like literally put my phone down, press record. The sound quality obviously is awful because it's just like a Samsung phone audio quality, and it's just like me, like just in whatever clothes I'm wearing, and my acoustic just doing a song. Like, but that's got way more comments, way more interaction, way more likes and stuff than that, which took us ages.
Yeah, it's like what Andras said yesterday in the meeting about how it doesn't always need to be the best quality. But for me, I'm like, I want it to sound as good as it can. I want it to look as good as it can, like just to make it take that quality like above other stuff that's out there. Yeah. But that isn't what always translates as what's going to be like.
It's weird because
in
some aspects, I am very much like that. I mean, like, you know, not so like in like with you. So like, as I said, I'm very much like, you know, a lot of my albums are like roughly recorded live albums and stuff like that, because I feel like the feel and the atmosphere and stuff like that to me is more important than how technically good is the production quality or, you know, the tones, how well is it all coming through. Like, I like to feel the atmosphere and the intensity and stuff. And my favorite albums is Townes Van Zandt, Live at the Old Quarter. My favourite Nirvana album is from the Muddy Banks of the Wooshka, which is their live album. one of my favorite Machine Head albums is Hell Alive. Their own, their live album. Just because it captures that live energy, and it's like, and I think every single song that's played on those albums is better than the album version, which obviously took ages in the studio producing it, blah blah blah, all this stuff. So, and that's one of the reasons why, as I said, like I wouldn't ever care about like if I almost got a bit of a buzz about a song and I just want to record myself and put it on my Instagram, then I have no qualms about that because I don't care. Because I also think that like if like whether someone likes it or not, the fact that you are literally just playing that completely bare bones, it's literally just like you, one instrument with a really rough recording, even if like 1 out of 10 people that follow me can appreciate that, then that's like really, then that obviously is really good because that's like no production, no faffing, no auto-tune or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? That's just like so bare. So that almost like means more in a way.
Yeah, and the more you got to set stuff up, like the more it can take you away from that bare moment. So like for me it's like making something like really easy, like I like having that recorder and just like putting it down and have so you can make the quality, because I do, that is like still really important to me, but it doesn't translate still, it's not always what people
I think
want or listen to.
I think again, one of the reasons why the Negroni Cocktail one like was so good was because it was almost more of like a jingle style. Like, I remember the day before I came around yours to record it, I was cooking in the kitchen and I came up with just the main hook.
Yeah, and I remember you playing it, and then I just put some chords behind it when we were up there doing the loop, and then we looped it around and just putting more stuff on it as we were looping it. You came with the guitar in,
and then you started doing the keyboard and stuff, and then it was like talking about like, okay, like exactly, how much.
Wasn't all like multi-track and it mixed and that. It was
we recorded it live.
The loop. Yeah. So
just with your loop and stuff. And then it was literally like, you tweaked it a little bit on your computer, and it was freaking done.
Yeah.
It took like 3 hours at your house, something like that. I reckon about that, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, maybe even less. Like.
And then one day, I think it was a Sunday, we just drove to the Valley of the Rocks, some basic filming.
Nice day out.
Yeah, nice day out, some basic filming. Boom. Like project done. No like week in the studio recording. All of this, and then like multiple days up on the Quantox and all this gear and everything like that, like wearing a freaking heavy helmet that kept scratching my nose, remember? And all this stuff, But anyway, we've come to the end of another Pandora's Box, ladies and gentlemen. Say quite a diverse range of subjects today. We went completely off the deep end, went completely balls deep on not just the origin of Homo sapiens, hominids, life on Earth, but also the origins of the universe. Maybe we're all just a petri dish for some crazy creature out there that's just beyond our comprehension. And then we talked about some of our, Maximinus, Thrax, a couple of other bits and bobs, and finished on our various projects, some of which have been flops, others not so much a flop. But anyway, nice to share them with you guys. Anyway, we appreciate every single one of you. Hope you're having a good week out there, whatever you're doing. We love you, and we'll be back again next week for another Pandora's Box. Ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta for now.